players really struggle with consistency, but of course to be a champion like Rafa, you have to have complete consistency in your game. You have to be able to repeat the results.
I mean, this is a guy who, watching now, Chance, who actually also had these problems where he was famously inconsistent. In fact, I would actually compare him like this for anyone who followed Quake in the old days. Chance basically used to be the original Dehang. He was the same guy where everyone was telling you all the time, no, in practice he's awesome, you know, he's really good, he can win maps off the best players.
Oh, yeah,
but he would always fall at that point, you know, where in Quake 4, in Quake Live, he was always held back by something. I mean, there even was a Quake 4 tournament where I believe he beat Cooler and he beat someone else, like maybe a QuakeCon, I think, and he made it quite deep, but then again, he still just lost. So he was like a guy where his level might have been higher than his results showed, but the reason he didn't get there was a fundamental one. It wasn't some fluke that he didn't get there. It's like there was a flaw that was being exposed that wasn't just to do with skill.
Yep. I think that's a fair criticism. And of course, he is considered to be, you know, below 0-4, Dehang and Rafa tier in the North American scene. But, I mean, Toxicity is a great map for him. In fact, if anyone wants to see a really awesome Toxicity game from Chance, just check out his game against Evil, I believe, at QuakeCon, which was really nice. That was really fun. So check that out from, I think the VOD is going to be on QuakeCon 2011 is the YouTube channel name, which is quite brilliant. I know.
That just seems fitting, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know, right.
That they care so much that they're using a 2-year-old name on the channel. Yeah. Or that they just had the sheer paucity of ambition to believe that they'd only need 1 year's channel, that they wouldn't ever keep running the QuakeCon. Like, all in all, it's just brilliant. From sums up id Software, doesn't it?
Yeah, no comment. No comment. So right now, you know, Chance is bouncing Burn around. That's quite a strange fight. Chance almost died there. But so far, things look very smooth for him. He's already made a 4 frag lead, and of course, this is the kind of map where, again, it's all based around momentum, and already Chance has momentum. All he has to do, I mean, the reason, like, where the momentum comes from 2 major aspects. One is that it's so, like, you can run the spawn so easily, like, you have so much visibility, you're able to hit the rails, then that's one thing that really generates momentum off the spawn once you get that first frag. The other thing is getting the clean frag. Once you have those 2 things starting to happen, then it starts to get out of control because you keep putting them in situations where they can't fight you, and then you keep getting items, and you get more and more items, they get more and more damage, and then they get hit off the spawn more and more and more. It's just like nothing they can do. So it's a common problem on this map for players to get out of control.
I also feel like one of the things that causes momentum on this map is that because of the places you spawn and the fact that you can almost instantly get a weapon once you spawn and you can start attacking the enemy, people get so that they feel like every time they die, if they're close by, they should just rush the enemy down. And so you have to time that really well if you're going to instantly take back control. So you tend to see once someone gets the 2 kills in a row, then they get the 3 to go with it just from the other guy rushing now. So that's why you get these really wild streaks back and forth. It's also what makes it a map where you can, the reason it's had so many crazy games on it, like I remember there was a game of Avec versus Toxic, I think was on this map, another crazy match. And part of the reason why is because basically you get in a scenario where, let me think how to describe it. Okay, it's basically like, it's one of the few maps where at the end of the map you can't just run and hide the whole time. No. Chances are, if you want to take any items, you have to take fights with people, even when you're in the lead. And so that's why you can have really exciting comebacks at the end, because if at the end the guy who's chasing really does just, his skill level just goes mental and he starts hitting every rail, then you can have like 5 frag comeback in like a minute and a half, you know, that's sort of a crazy pace. And it's actually quite rare you see that nowadays in Quake Live.
Yeah.
I think there was also another game, I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it maybe like Avec versus Kilson on this map that was a crazy comeback?
I cannot remember.
I saw a game, look for one of these games, it was really good though.
Yeah, it's, and...
Because Kilson's a guy where like this is a map made for him as well, you know, like just railing non-stop.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, I mean, this map is really falling out of popularity amongst the top players. Yeah.
I mean, I never thought it was that. The problem is, I can understand why some players don't like it because it's such high variance. And so if you're a top player, even if you have this style of play, you'd rather play a map where it's more likely you can control the pace and you can change how the game's go. Okay, I'm up by 5 now, I'll play more conservatively. It's harder to do that on this map though.
Yep. It most certainly is. And, you know, this map though does have one of those interesting elements, which is emphasized a little bit more, which is basically the idea that if you time it correctly, you can actually you can trade deaths for damage onto the opponent to basically weaken them enough so that you're like you have this risk, like, okay, I'm going to throw 3 frags away at a point where I know that on the 3rd time, I get a situation with off the spawn, I have a stack advantage.
That's what I mean, because it's such a small map in that sense. It's so quick to get across with the teleporters.
So I mean that's the kind of death where there's a plan that's very evident, where it like really works out. You know, someone like Evil is really a master of those situations, mostly because he can do it better than anyone else, because he's able to connect like plus forward damage better than anyone else. So he's able to do that all the time, and I mean it's a way that he can catch people off guard really badly sometimes.
So okay, I've got a question for you, since this game is pretty much garbage at the moment. So after Evil won the DreamHack Winter, where he beat Cypher, he beat Rafa, people were hailing him as, okay, now, you know, it went Rafa, then it went Cypher, now it's Evil's time, you know, he's going to win everything. Weren't you like a little bit underwhelmed by his performance versus Rafa at the QuakeCon?
In the finals?
Yeah.
I felt like Evil played actually very good, but I mean, I felt like he put Rafa to his limits, but the problem was Toxicity was like a pretty terrible map for him to end on. And I mean, if you look at some of the games, like Evil could have won that series against Rafa. I mean, the first map, Furious Heights, was like absolutely, I can't remember who won it because it was so damn close. I mean, those 2 players, the first game of the day it was like Group A, first day of play, it was those 2 facing off against each other, and Evil actually took Rafa down, and he was showing like really good form, and Rafa had to improve over the course of the tournament to a level of comfort, and Evil was also improving over the course of the tournament, that he was able to beat him in the finals. I don't know, I felt like Evil was actually really good, but we had to see the best possible Rafa to take him down. And Rafa actually said that in an interview. He felt like Evil was one of these players that's just like completely unstoppable in a way that he hasn't really felt like he's seen in a long time, and that he knows that he could, because Rafa actually came to the studio, or rather to the office or whatever, to actually play for our spring season finale, and he actually faced Evil in the semi-finals of that. He ended up losing, and he said when he came away from that, he actually felt kind of good about it, because even though he lost, you know, QuakeCon was the important tournament to him, but he felt like he kind of learned what he needed to learn about Evil, and like he kind of could test some theories to really see that, okay, when it's crunch time, I can actually take him down with what I know now.
That's actually something that happens in MMA, okay? There's certain types of people where the saying is that you have to fight them twice to beat them. Because the first time you fight them, their style is so unlike anyone else's, you're just not prepared for it. So no matter how good you are, you might still lose. But then the second time you fight them, now you know everything that went wrong in the first one, and everything that they could do that was a strength you weren't prepared for. So this time you beat them, you totally own them, and from then on out, like you might beat them every time, you know. So actually you needed to lose in order to become better. And in fact, let's say you'd won the first encounter, but very narrowly, that would actually set you up to lose future encounters where they would perform better and you wouldn't have figured out their style. So it can be a bizarre scenario in learning. That's why like doing badly and failing can help so much.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, especially when you consider, like you actually made this point previously, especially about, you know, actually Rafa again, and of course, you know, he's always going to be the topic of much discussion, being
he's in the cooler of our NA Comp discussions. Everything goes back to Rafa.
That's very true, actually, but I think the way you put it was, that's a very, very cool frag there, but the way you put it was, he had to develop ways to defeat these absolute aim monsters. And, you know, Evil was kind of that, but even more. Like, if you take his strengths and compare him to Evil, it's like so different. Like, Evil's able to hit as much, but he doesn't sacrifice. Like, his dodging is incredibly good as well. Like, he's really amazing.
Which, by the way, is very rare for a good aim, a really good aimer. They
Yeah.
tend to sacrifice dodging.
Exactly. That's exactly what Strengths does in his. I don't know how Strengths plays these days.
Well, that was his key flaw.
Yeah.
And that would make him even predictable against other really awesome players, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Evil was like kind of. I really wanted to make a storyline where you have like, you know, you have like these, let's say, drawn in the DC comic style or something, where you have like where Evil's like coming over, this like huge like evil like Russian guy coming over to invade America, and Rafa's like the last bastion of hope for the Americans to take down this guy who's gonna take the trophy and so on, because it really felt like that. And when you saw the tournament, they faced 3 times, and those guys like were kind of on another level, and that was just amazing to see. And DreamHack Winter should be an amazing tournament, because we'll hopefully get a lot of European names we didn't see, like Toxic, like even maybe Avik, Cypher will probably end up going. I mean, we'll probably have Pavel. I mean, Kula. I mean, we're going to have so many amazing players who weren't there previously. You know, even with people like Sparty and so on, like so many good names. On top of hopefully Rafa and Dehang. The chance 29-0 against Burn. I feel a little bit bad. We didn't say anything about the game really.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 29-0 whitewash. What do you want to say?
I know. It's tough. But I think this is the best of 3, so they're going to play another map. So I'm not sure what that's going to be, but we'll find out. But yeah.
And so this is round of 16 still?
This is quarterfinals. No.
Quarterfinals.
This is quarterfinals, okay. Yeah. Just double checking. Yeah, it is quarterfinals. The winner of this goes into the semi-final. But yeah, to just keep going on that point. I mean, it's an amazing testament to basically what Rafa can accomplish by its approach to the game. I mean,
it's not exactly a new concept, but it is one worth repeating, which is that facing adversity actually pushes you to a high level. The idea is you could, in theory, get to a high level no matter what, but what impetus would you have to do it if you could win by being not as good?
Yeah.
If someone's literally, you're going to lose unless you go to another level in terms of coming to a revelation about how to play them or working on your own skills, then that's what's going to force you to get to the next level. Like there's actually a basketball example I'll give since we're on the American stream and people might follow the NBA. Mm-hmm. So LeBron James was already the best basketball player in the whole world, right? For a couple of years, he'd won the MVP award, the regular seasons, and he got to the finals in 2011, and his team was the overwhelming favorite to win, okay? They were playing versus a team who were like considered undermanned, underpowered. And in this final, he actually quite famously sort of choked and he couldn't perform under pressure and he did really badly. And then as a result of that, all the media and all the fans were like, oh, you're garbage. You know, you might be really good in the regular season, but when it matters, you're just terrible. You can't win. You're not as good as the great players. So he went away over the summer and redesigned his game. Remember, from already the best in the whole world and being like just the best player and MVP. But he still redesigned his game to an extent where he could improve certain areas. Like he didn't take 3-point shots anymore. He made himself take like easier shots closer to the back. He like added all these little elements in, right? So that when he came back next, and then his team made it to the finals the next 2 years. They won both years, and he was the MVP both years. So if he'd have won that, say he'd have just won that first final where he was playing badly, he'd have probably just kept a similar level of play. You know? He'd had no reason to suddenly rethink everything. He's already the best player in the world, NBA champion. You know, there'd be no reason to. But because that one thing was missing, he hadn't won the big thing that mattered. It made him rethink and become even better the next 2 years. So you actually needed to lose to win the next 2.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting concept. I mean, it goes back to what we were saying before about just really talented players versus players who aren't as talented but are able to kind of have some success because they're so limited in their own innate abilities. They have to try to make up for it in another way. And yeah, I mean, I guess Chance is just we're waiting for Chance to connect to the server again. He's rebooting or something like that. I don't know what was wrong. I mean, he got a 28-0 or something, so couldn't have been too bad. Whatever was wrong. So just waiting for Chance to come back. Then he'll play the last map against Burn, assuming that he wins it. Which is a really horrible thing to say.
I mean,
but it was 28-0.
I mean, sure, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to say. Poor Burn. But he's playing Quake, so it's good. Do you have any? Okay, so Quake, you've been around for a really long time.
Okay, where's this going?
You've been around for a really long time. You're around since the Quake World days, or rather probably NetQuake days, probably, I guess.
Just Quake, yeah.
Just Quake, 96, everything started. You've basically seen esports develop from just the very, very start. And FPS has been losing its place gradually in esports. And it's not looking like that's going to change. It seems like that's just what's slowly happening, just slowly losing grip. So we're probably losing Quake. CS is is trying really hard.
It's not really working out, is it?
But what is the future you see for FPS and esports, or is there one?
Here's the problem, okay? Esports as a term is what has killed Quake, okay? I'll explain what I mean. If you talk about esports history now, you're going to include Quake in this. So Quake, Quake 2, Quake 3.
Oh, yeah.
But what you're not realizing was esports didn't exist then. It was just Quake. What happened was people really loved Quake. It was an awesome game. People liked to watch Quake, so they put on Quake tournaments. Then it started to get more people watching and more LANs happening. So people got sponsors to sponsor the LANs.
Yeah.
And shall I continue this point?
Yeah, you might.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just continue it for a little while unless this game gets interesting. So basically, the point being that everything was just based around what an awesome game Quake was. So all that was required was that Quake remain an awesome game. And so the sequels, okay, it's debatable how good they were, but some people liked them, okay, so it still existed.
Yeah.
But then esports itself started to include other games. So Counter-Strike came in, then you got other games, Warcraft 3, whatever. And then esports became sort of a separate term that now Quake was just a part of. And so the key thing is, now Quake could be dropped from the equation and esports itself could continue on. And so esports sort of took on a life of its own and then just became about which is the most popular game, which is the game that can get the most viewers, which can, be the game that can get the most money. So there is a way that you can make Quake a big game again, okay? But it has to work like this. Companies have to be set up where they're going to show Quake or games like Quake, but they're only going to show those tournaments. That's the first rule. We're only a Quake company, okay? So now we get sponsors. So if we can get enough people to watch, now we can get some sponsors. Now we can have some tournaments. Basically, you have to sort of reset the history of Quake and start over again. The same reason, okay? If the game's valid enough people will watch it and are interested in it, and you can get sponsored just for that, then you can build it up the same way that esports is built. The problem is, everyone before did that, but then they got a moment where they realized, you know what, I could actually get more viewers for my league if I switched to Counter-Strike. I could get more if I switched to StarCraft 2. I could get more if I switched to League of Legends. So you need someone who wouldn't take that easy way out, okay? I'll give you an example, okay? There used to be a team in Counter-Strike in the UK called Four Kings.
Yeah.
The reason they dominated the whole UK scene wasn't that they were much better and they had lots of skill. They were other talented players, but what they would do is every time a talented player came along who they hadn't had in their team before, they would recruit him from the team he was in and kill that team. Well, basically, there was a second best team created out of a lot of the cast-offs who had the talent to be in Four Kings, but they weren't at the time. And their premise when they made the team was we'll all agree, called Infinity Esports.
Oh, yeah,
but this was a later version, okay, that had some of the old players in. And they agreed, okay, the deal is we're all going to make this team, and we all agree if one of us gets an offer to join Four Kings, we will not do it. Well, what happened was, when the World Cyber Games qualifier was coming in the UK, one of them just got an offer. Come and join Four Kings, you can play with us at the tournament. You won't be in the team, but you can play at the tournament with us. So he left and he broke the team up. So again, you see the problem. You need people in place
what a scumbag.
who can build the game up like this. But then the idea is they won't then take the quick buck and just switch to League of Legends to get more viewers. Now, listen, if it turns out that doing this method, people won't watch Quake like they used to do, and there won't be as many Quake on that were awesome as before. Okay, well, that's not a big deal to me, because that says that the game maybe isn't good enough anymore. So I'm not worried about, like, it has to succeed, but I think that's the way it would succeed, you know. You have to sort of retrace the same steps, but not make the mistakes that would lead you away from having awesome... Because I actually think it's a key flaw in esports that they've abandoned all the really good games. Because now you end up with a scenario where I follow StarCraft 2 and I follow League of Legends professionally for my job. And it's so rare, even amongst people who love those games, that you have really amazing games. You have them every now and then, you have good games otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen so many tournaments, almost every time Rafa and Kula have ever played in Quake Live, it's been incredible. It's been some of the best games I've ever seen. And like in those moments, I can almost not even believe what I'm seeing. It's so, like the personalities and like the magnetic quality of their play is so like electric. But even when you're watching it, it's like amazing to watch. Whereas some of these other games, they need everything to go right for it to be that sort of exceptional game. It comes along quite rare. And so I think that actually esports has kind of screwed itself because it's lost a bit of the magic there. I think a better way to do it would have been have some of the games be there to get the numbers, and then have the odd game like a Quake or a Counter-Strike or something that you have sort of on the side as like this is to represent the magical element of esports, but we sort of fund it using the parts that can get the numbers and get the sponsors in, like balance it out a bit. Because in Hollywood, I'll give you an example. In Hollywood, people make movies. There's a famous example of a guy called Steven Soderbergh's a director. And the way he makes movies, he's even said this in interviews, is he does a Hollywood movie, like Ocean's 11 or something, that he doesn't think is particularly artistic. He does it for the studio because it's going to make him $200 million. And then he says to them, okay, since I did that movie, now I want to do like a passion project. It's probably not going to make a lot of money. You know, I'm going to put an actor I like in it. It's something I've had in mind for a while. They'll let him do that because they make $200 million, they lose maybe $10 million on his film. Well, they've made $190 million there. So he does that method over and over. That's what I think esports should do. Because I'll even give you an esports example of how this works. At these tournaments they have in Dota 2 and Dota 2 and CS, they have these Star Ladder tournaments in Kiev. And the finals are always at this LAN in Kiev, okay? But they host the finals so that the Dota 2 final takes place after the CSGO final. That means that the CSGO final every time has like 40k viewers. But you can't get 40k viewers for CS. But you can if you tell people there's Dota 2 coming on afterwards. then people watch it and they're like, yeah, this isn't bad actually. I'll probably watch next event as well. So you see the way that you can actually use the success of one game to give to the other. It's almost like a Robin Hood effect.
That's don't DreamHack try to do stuff like that.
They used to do the same thing as well, yeah. But unfortunately, a lot of tournaments have actually gone away from that model even. Now they try to show every game of a tournament on separate streams.
Yeah.
So again, you're sort of isolating people a bit there. Whereas I remember the same thing happened to IEM when they used to show the finals one after the other. The Quake final when Cooler beat Avec in the European one got loads of viewers because people were waiting for League of Legends. They were waiting for, I don't know if League of Legends was that one. They were waiting for StarCraft 2 or Counter-Strike or something, you know. It's the same principle. But the problem is these are really like philosophical principles, and people have moved away from it because again, they just want to get the big League of Legends numbers, and you can see where the departure is from how I think and how the people who get to actually choose these things think.
Yeah.
It's quite different now.
It's actually a really interesting idea. I guess stuff like that would be much more feasible when because still the infrastructure in esports is really flimsy. Like, I mean, like you're making the point that journalists don't even really get this. If you want to be an esports, sorry, if any aspiring esports journalists out there watching the stream, you probably won't be making much money, if anything, from doing it. And I mean, then that's like one of the key things in a successful industry is the quality of the coverage. And if you don't even have journalists that are even very well paid, how can I think it's very telling. And quite clearly the infrastructure is not there, but perhaps when it does get there, maybe something like that will come along. I don't know. It's quite difficult.
I mean, when I think of it like this. Okay, I don't understand why tournaments will not host a Quake tournament by virtue of the fact that they think to themselves, okay, better to use like League of Legends or StarCraft 2 for this money or this space in the tournament, okay? Because the thing is, if Quake had its own circuit, sure, it will never have 100k people watching. But if it had a solid circuit where every tournament was Rafa, Cypher, Cooler, Avec, all attending the tournament, Evil, all these guys attend, then it could have a solid 20k every single time. Now that can still be sold to a sponsor. The reason I know it can is because guess what? Games used to only get 20k at most. Yeah. And we had sponsors back then. Now obviously some of the sponsors are only going to be in League of Legends stuff for the numbers. But you will be able to get some sponsors. Maybe you can use a budget sponsor who's not as big they haven't got as much money, but you can go, okay, if you've got a lot of money, we bring you in for the League of Legends game. If you don't, then how about you sponsor this Quake tournament instead? That's like our cheaper option on our sponsor package that we have. So I think there is a way to balance it all out so that it makes sense money-wise. You're not just giving up all the viewers and the money to do this tournament, but it has its own place as well. Because I think with games like these, like I say, because they're so exciting, it's worth going out your way to try and get them into the tournament. It's not that you're only getting them in the tournament because of the numbers, like with the other games.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? How could FPS ever have a place again? Because I'm trying to find a place where it could realistically work, not like everyone tomorrow switches to Quake, you know?
Yeah, no, it's I don't know, it's really interesting because you can come at it from multiple perspectives. I mean, the perspective you came at it from, I think, was actually a very nice option, potentially. But the other one is that can you make FPS as friendly and enjoyable and casually entertaining as a game like League of Legends? Because that's clearly where the success is there. It's like the accessibility of the game. So it's so high level. So I mean, if the question is to me, is that possible with FPS? Because I don't actually know if it is or not.
I mean, I have another idea I can go along those lines if you... Are you finished on that point?
Yeah, okay. Sure, go for it.
So I actually had another idea, which I've suggested for every game I've been involved with the community for, and it's never been done, it's okay. Which is that you have a pro mode in the game, but it's built into the game. Yeah. And my idea of how it is on a game like League of Legends, okay, the way the game works is when you play it in the public mode, you sort of rank. And if you're doing well, you're getting pushed up higher into higher divisions. And if you're losing, you're getting put down to lower divisions. Yep. So my idea is these divisions would not only represent your ranking, but the levels of the game you have access to. I don't mean levels as in actual maps. I mean levels of like difficulty and complexity and mechanics that are available in the game.
Do they have that in League of Legends? Like you
no, that doesn't exist.
Things if you...
No.
Okay.
So my idea is that as you went up, so as you got to the top levels, then it would add in things that were more mechanically different or things that were more skillful to the game. Well, in a Quake sense, I'd put it like this. People need to start on a really easy, fun version of Quake, because playing FFA isn't fun in Quake, even for good players. So you have to design a version of Quake that's fun in free-for-all to get people to want to play Quake, then make tiers so that like once you get to the top, it's real Quake like this. But between then, maybe it's a version of Quake where there's not as much armor or the weapons stay on, or I don't know what you do, but you can figure out some things that would be more fun. And the idea is as you get higher, you take a bit of the fun out, but put some of the skill in. Because at the moment, it's all or nothing. You have to either go totally hardcore into Quake, or you can't get into Quake. You can play a game like League of Legends.
Yep.
So there has to be some middle ground. And I don't think it's that extreme an example, because my idea as well with the tiering is that it would almost be intuitive in the game. You wouldn't even be telling people, now you're accessing the new version. They'd find out, oh, these guys are much better, here's why. Now I'm in the game, I can realize.
Yeah, no, I think that's really the thing, accessibility. Like, you need a casual market. I mean, the other thing as well is once you have that accessibility and you have the marketing there, you need to be able to monetize the project somehow so it becomes sustainable. So it's obviously like what Riot did, because then they're getting all this money from their tournament, so they're from their leagues and stuff like that, and the fact that there's so many players who are going for all the microtransactions for their free-to-play game, then all of a sudden they can host these massive tournaments. But actually, isn't the esports thing kind of like they lose money on it, but it's such good marketing that they continue to...
Well, the thing is, esports actually represents a very small amount of League of Legends.
Yeah.
The numbers who actually watch the esports stuff look incredible compared to other esports, but they're incredibly low for the player base. It's something ludicrously low, like less than 1% or something that watch the actual games, because you get like 100K is nothing when you have 30 million people. Whereas what you realize, that's actually a key flaw that they have compared to Dota 2. Dota 2 has less viewers. So say they had like 60K viewers on a match for League of Legends at 100K. Difference is there isn't millions and millions and millions of people play Dota. A few million maybe do, but it's not the same number. So actually they're doing a much better job of having a viewer base who are interested in esports. So yeah, to Riot, esports is just marketing. It's just a way of showing another aspect of the game, you know. So to them, it's not even a big deal to blow all this money, which is also a reason why it's a bit unfair to consider that esports in the same sense that you do other esports. Because like I was describing with Quake, that's all predicated on the fact that Quake's a good game. People want to watch it because it's a good game. They're willing to go to tournaments. They're willing to pay for money and all this stuff. That's where the industry's built up. Whereas a lot of the League of Legends stuff is using the vehicle of that industry, but then just saying, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million as the prize pool. Okay, well, what return do I have to? Oh, nothing. That's just $1 million. Well, if you could do that in every game, you could make loads of games. Not as big, but you see what I mean? It's sort of being propped up to a degree. It's not actually living off its own value.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like they've gone, such an awesome game with so many viewers. We've got a sponsor to give us $1 million. No, they're paying that aspect. So at the moment, it might look like there's no hope for any other game, but really,
Dota 2
they can't just pump that money in forever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they do seem to have something that's much more sustainable from the fact that, like you said, people are actually interested in... Because, like you said, how many players are registered?
Well, that was something that actually Counter-Strike had going for it. In the early end days of Counter-Strike, very few people played it, but it could still get 30,000 viewers. Because the difference is, almost everyone in the scene followed the esports side of it. Whereas that's very unlike the modern games, because they're going so casual that most people who play... There's a lot of people in League of Legends don't know esports exists.
Yep.
And some of them even... Like, that's what's funny is if you ever look at any of Slasher's work in StarCraft 2 or any of these games, on his site, GameSpot, it's actually a general game site, and he's just doing stuff in a section called esports.
Which suits him perfectly.
And if you ever read the comments, the comments are just like, almost none of them are positive. They're all like, what is this? These people play games for money? These are losers. Get these guys off this site. And he gets such like abuse in all his comments, because even people on his site, they don't follow esports, you know. So it's actually like, if people want to go super casual, we're going to end up in a retarded world like that, where there's like... No one's even really following them as much. It's just like flicking on Big Brother or something, you know.
Yeah, and it's great though. I mean, having like Riot doing what they're doing, because a lot of people give League of Legends a lot of crap for just because they think it's a terrible game, and I'm not going to make any comment. I think people can maybe make their mind up what I think about it. But stuff as like, for example, Riot like figuring out the whole like visa thing for like the athlete visas for pro players. I think that sets an amazing precedent that something like that can actually happen. Because imagine like there were so many tournaments where like Russian players like couldn't get to QuakeCon or whatever. I mean, okay, part of it is the issue with the inherent issue of QuakeCon where like stuff gets announced like a month before, sure.
Well, there's also unfortunately the fact that there's like a level of corruption in how you get these things in Russia.
All right, I have no idea about that.
No, as in when you would apply for the visa, you'd apply the same way you always did. And so 4 players apply for them. 2 of them get turned down for no reason. But the problem is when they then reapply, it takes 3 weeks to get the visa. And so they haven't got another 3 weeks, you know. And so that would be the problem. Essentially, like, it's sort of pot luck when you apply. I think because maybe you have to pay to get it or something. So, like, by making a certain percentage just not go through for no reason, you have to reapply. Yeah. That's a way to get more money. It sounds cynical, but that's apparently how I've heard it work.